Welcome again to I'm Only Human. This is your average Jen here with you. It's a little bit later in the day, so let's get another episode underway. And I believe that this one is recovery recovery path step 1. And I'm sure that this one is going to be a little bit different cuz I think I was like just reading off questions or something like that. It might be a little hard to follow, but if you have like a pen and pencil and paper and write some things down while you listen, it could be beneficial. So let me bring this up. Mhm. And here we are.
Hi there, and welcome to I'm Only Human, a podcast that attempts to explain how to coexist with other humans. This podcast is going to dive into topics like: is it possible to overcome human nature? Are rules and laws necessary for taming bad behaviors, or are they simply a control mechanism crafted by other disturbed minds? Why do we fight with each other? And how does traditional religion impact us? Can social disease be healed through individual recovery? My name is Jen, and I'm an average human. Before I begin, I would like to state that I will be talking about controversial things such as, but not limited to, religion, God, the Bible, 12-step programs, and politics. I am not an expert, and I don't claim to be one. I will, however, be referencing Alcoholics Anonymous because it is the granddaddy of all other 12-step programs. I will also be quoting things from the Bible and mentioning God along with different religions. I'm not trying to promote a particular program, nor am I trying to convert anyone. I believe religion gives us a foundation, and 12-step recovery guides people down a path to self actualization. Social disease has been with us since the dawn of time, but recovery has still been achieved by millions of people. Through recovery, healing is possible. I believe that changed minds and attitudes can change our world. Hello, everyone. I've felt myself begin to revert to my stinking thinking lately. I don't like feeling angry, so I figured I would get back to basics and remind myself of some important things. I had mentioned that 12-step recovery is one way to achieve a self actualization. I do realize that not everybody is in a recovery phase and some don't want to be. I'm going to share what the first step of any 12-step program is anyway, and you can decide for yourself if what I say applies to you or not. What is the first step anyway? We admitted we were powerless over fill in the blank, that our lives had become unmanageable. To admit something simply means to confess that something is true. I generally try to include a long list of words when I define something, so this will be our first trip down the rabbit hole. You ready? Here we go. Synonyms for admit are acknowledge, confess, reveal, disclose, divulge, avow, declare, bring to light, give away, leak, concede, accept, grant, agree, allow, own, concur, recognize, realized, appreciate, discover, make known, make public, be aware of, be conscious of. The antonyms are deny and conceal. Powerless means without ability, influence, or power. So, what does that mean? And how do you get from denial to admitting there is a problem? Let's start with this question: do I accept that I cannot control another person's behavior? Take a few seconds and think about this. Do you like to be controlled by another person? I know that I sure don't. I understand there are rules, regulations, and laws for a reason. I think all of these things are taken to the extreme. I believe that people don't need to be told what is wrong or right. They already know. The more control or micromanagement that is put in place, the more I want to rebel against it. I know what ethical good behavior versus what cruel or bad behavior is. I have been forced, well, maybe I shouldn't say forced, but I looked up the definition and it does fit in here. Forced means obtained or imposed by coercion or physical power. The synonyms are enforced, compulsory, obligatory, mandatory, involuntary, exacted, coerced, imposed, demanded, compelled, required, requisite, stipulated, dictated, ordained, prescribed, necessitated, unavoidable, and inescapable. The antonym is voluntary. Sometimes those forced things are for my own good and sometimes not. When I was a child, these mandatory things were chores, homework, going to church, going to school, trying new foods, and unavoidable interaction with other kids. These things were experiences that prepared me for adult life. As an adult, I am forced to comply with laws, give most of my money to the government, spend more time at work than I want to, I'm expected to follow rules at work, forced to be accountable for the things I choose to do. I'm glad that my childhood prepared me for adulthood, but being an adult is not much fun. I got a little off topic there. The original question was, do I accept that I cannot control another person's behavior? Looking a little deeper, I ask myself, do I recognize that an addict, child, partner, elder, LGBTQ, foreigner, politician, movie star, rock star, world leader, employer, and so on are all individuals that have their own habits, characteristics, and ways of reacting to daily happenings that are different from mine? I suppose this can include animals too. We all know they do have feelings too. I've seen plenty of videos on Facebook of animals that show playfulness and affection. This is what annoys me about myself. I forget that other people are absorbed in their own world. I'm going to use the workplace as an example since it is something most adults can relate to. I get irritated when I listen to others constantly complaining about how unfair the workplace is. I think the real issue is the lack of control employees have over production demand. Workers are the bottom feeders of any organization. That's the way the world is designed. The lack of compassion for individuals is the main reason employees complain so much. On the other hand, employees forget they are there to provide a service in exchange for a paycheck. The problem is that the bottom feeders are constantly being told their efforts are not good enough. There must be more production to keep up with the demand of the world. I have a question. When did we forget that we are the world? We are the ones that can change the rules. At least that's how it is supposed to work. I don't think we, as a world, need to be married to our employer. This even applies to the company's CEO. Why can't the world slow down to the point where a 5-hour workday is sufficient for production and distribution? If the world would slow down and think about what really matters, everything could change. I'm talking about a revolution. I'll keep saying that change in our world begins inside each individual. Nothing will ever improve until we admit there is a problem in the first place. If there were to be less greed, there might be less violence. Less violence would be amazing. I want to get into the 7 deadly sins at some point, but today I want to keep myself focused on the topic of admitting that I am powerless over everything but myself. I'm not so sure I have power over myself, even, and I'll touch on that later. Can you accept that addiction is a disease? How about codependency as an illness? There are two definitions of the word disease. One is described as a disorder of structure or function in a human, animal, or plant, especially one that has a known cause and a distinctive group of symptoms, signs, or anatomical changes. The second definition is a particular quality, habit, or disposition regarded as adversely affecting a person or group of people. Anatomical means relating to bodily structure. I believe everyone's anatomical structure has shifted throughout the years. Also, addicted or sick people look different if they get deep enough into their illness. We have more mental health issues today, or at least we are more aware of mental health issues today. Is it possible that alcoholism and drug addiction has changed our DNA throughout the years? I'm not a scientist. I just have wild thoughts occasionally. I throw things out there that could be a possibility, but hasn't ever been researched that I know of. I learned in science class about genes and how things are passed from parents to children. Sometimes a person can be carrier of a dormant gene, which could be passed onto offspring, and then it becomes active in that child. Two seemingly healthy adults create a child. That child might have some deformity or genetic mutation that was not visible in the seemingly healthy adults. Although the rest of the world might find a way to blame everything but genetics for an autistic child or a Down syndrome child, the problem is with our DNA, not a vaccine or any other outside force short of violence at an early age, which might impair growth in some way. Getting back on track here. A disease is an anatomical change related to body structure, which a person has no control over. I keep trying to assert my control over my weight, and it feels like a losing battle most times. I've stopped obsessing over it and I'm living my life. Diseased thinking is harder to overcome because it lives within the mind. The purpose of these steps, and this first one in particular, is to take a deep look and perhaps plant a seed for those who are not ready to accept that change begins with themselves. The disease of an addict or alcoholic is not always apparent. It is a physiological response to an antigen or something that the body does not like and will attack. I didn't know that I was allergic to tree nuts. And I love Honey Nut Cheerios, but I can't eat them anymore. It's a sad thing. My family members still like to eat Honey Nut Cheerios, though, and there is a box of them sitting on top of the refrigerator right now. That temptation is always there, and I've reached for the box a few times and even tried to eat a couple pieces, but it's a good thing they were stale, so I spit them out. It did not trigger the allergy. I also have an unknown food allergy that could be triggered at any moment. I think I'm allergic to bacteria in food, which would give a regular person food poisoning. It causes an allergic reaction in me, on top of the acute food poisoning effect, and it can be quite severe at times. I haven't had an allergic reaction in close to a year, so I stopped carrying my EpiPen with me. A month ago, I went to a buffet, and I should have known better because it looked like the food had been sitting there for a while, but I was hangry. So I ate some food. 20 minutes later, my skin was itching, burning, and all blotchy. A severe reaction means that I break out into a cold sweat and my blood pressure drops. My skin gets cold and clammy while I'm sweating, and my skin takes on a gray shade. I'm aware of what's going on around me, but I'm unable to respond. Such was the case once in front of the family until the ambulance came. 2 hours later, it's as if nothing happened at all. This time, I felt horrible, but it wasn't severe enough of a reaction to need the EpiPen or ambulance. I did have to send my boyfriend to get some Benadryl. Just because the allergy hadn't been triggered in a while doesn't mean that it's gone. I think this is part of the reason why people relapse. They forget how horrible the experience of the allergic reaction is. An addict's body will crave more and more of whatever the substance is, and that is a physiological reaction they have no control over. Like me, or maybe not like me, their obsession with this substance is so great that they are compelled to see if somehow, perhaps this time will be different than the last time. Spoiler alert, the reaction is the same, but the severity of it might not be apparent immediately. Moving along now, have you, dear listener, tried to change another person? What were the consequences? I have tried changing people. I somehow thought that I was going to fix someone who I thought was broken. I became so engulfed in their life that I lost myself along the way. I had no opinions of my own, or at least none that I could share. I had no control over anything in my own life. While I was busy trying to control them, I let them take control of me. My consequence was getting sick over and over due to the stress I put myself under. I also used to think that I had the power to improve things for others where I worked. I would regularly work through my breaks or come in early for overtime. I'd work 12 or more hours every day, 5 to 6 days a week, and in the end, it made no difference. I have no control. My single efforts did nothing to help reduce overtime for the rest of my team. The only thing I can do, however, to help my own situation is not feed into the drama that surrounds me inside the workplace. I didn't cause the chaos, I can't control the chaos, and I can't cure the chaos that surrounds me. Complaining has never solved anything. Dialogue and discussion between people who can come to an understanding of each other is when change begins. What sort of things have you done to get the things you want from another person? Is there a way you could have handled the situation any different? I don't know if I have that cute puppy dog, feel sad for me look, but those that do use it as a weapon. These little things are forms of manipulation that everybody learns from a young age. Children learn to scream, pout, and throw temper tantrums to get the things they want. Older children tend to bully younger children to get the things they want. Adults like to slander one another. We like to bring each other down so that we can feel better about ourselves. This is an obvious form of manipulation that politicians use. It's easier to make the other guy look bad rather than honest discussion about real issues that need to be addressed. We, the people, are sick and tired of it all. I know that I am. Humans in general, regardless of age, tend to use guilt to get the things they want. Some resort to physical violence to get what they want from another person. Although these methods may be effective, they are not effective in a good way. I wonder what would happen if we were to simply ask for what we want or need. When it comes to emotions, it's not easy to recognize what you need, let alone ask someone else. When I am super cranky, I use the acronym HALTS, HALTS, which stands for hungry, angry, lonely, tired, or sick. I recognize that I act differently when I'm hungry, angry, lonely, tired, or sick. I don't want to be around people and I get very annoyed. The good news is, once I identify what is going on, I can do something to correct the situation. Maybe I just need a sandwich. Maybe I just need to sit down for 10 minutes and clear my head. Maybe I just need a hug from a loved one. I might not have slept well and I need to get some more rest. When I am sick, I just want to be left alone. Moving forward, the questions seem a bit redundant, but that's okay. How do I feel when the things I'm trying to control don't work out the way I want them to? This one is easy to answer. When things do not work out the way I feel they should work out, I get angry. I start blaming everyone around me for not seeing things from my point of view. Can you, dear listener, say the same? Are you willing to admit that the real reason you're angry is because you have no control over the things other people think, feel, and say? What would happen if you let go of those things that you don't have control over? Would the world fall apart? What is the worst thing that would happen if, for instance, you let your child wear mismatched clothes to school? What is the worst thing that would happen if your coworker doesn't do things exactly the way you do them? Are the decisions other people make a reflection on you? I really thought that my housemates needed me to be there so that there would be food on the table and rent would be paid. It turns out they can take care of themselves just fine without me. If I prevent natural consequences, I'm robbing another person the dignity to grow. If I let them deal with the consequences of their actions, they may decide it's time to change their behavior. Do I have to become emotionally invested in another's problems? Why would I think that? Let's say that my sibling is upset because they were disciplined for something they did, which was wrong. Because my sibling is upset, do I have to be upset too? If my partner is in a bad mood and complaining about everything, do I have to take on that same attitude? The answer is no. I can let that person be in a bad mood. I don't have to try to fix it for them. I forget about this with my kids. When I see they are upset, I want to fix the problem for them. This doesn't help my kids grow as a person. They need to learn how to sit with negative feelings and overcome the mood on their own. If I'm the reason they are in a bad mood, I should take a look at my behavior and see if I'm at fault. If I am at fault, I need to apologize and correct whatever it is. I notice that when others are trying to manipulate or control me, they get upset when I don't do what they expect me to do. Ask yourself this: am I looking for quick fix problems? Is there such a thing? Credit cards are a perfect example of this. A person might consider a credit card to be a quick fix to getting the things they want, but in the end, it's not a quick fix at all. And before too long, a person can become consumed with debt. There is a quick fix to problems, and that involves letting things go. Perhaps talking to another person and reasoning things out without yelling, without dominating or trying to assert your agenda on them is a quick way to squash an issue. Some problems will take longer to fix. An injury can happen in an instant, and yet it can take a lifetime to heal from that injury. Time is needed for mending wounds. Are there situations where you feel excessively responsible for another person? I feel this way, and I don't know if anyone can provide any feedback on it. As a parent, we are responsible for our children. What if our children are exhibiting bad behavior and we have repeatedly tried to correct that behavior, yet the child continues to do the same thing? For example, I had a sibling who liked to steal things. Was it the responsibility of my mom and stepdad to deal with the consequences of his sticky fingers? He was old enough to know better. I'm curious, where do you draw the line? When that child inevitably gets caught, how do you, as a parent, react to that? I would love some feedback on this from anybody who knows more than I do. Looking at it from another angle, are there situations where you feel shame or embarrassment for someone else's behavior? I used to be embarrassed all the time by one of my exes. I don't know why I felt embarrassed for him because he never felt embarrassed for himself. I think societal expectations prevent people from becoming who they are meant to be. He was being himself. And if I'm embarrassed or ashamed of his behavior, I'm too focused on him rather than myself. If you are someone seeking change, what prompted you to seek it? What do you hope to gain by reconstructing your current behavior or situation? Have your expectations shifted since you've become aware of why you are not happy? I feel like I gained a new perspective. It's not easy to separate the behavior from the person, but it can be done. What prompted me to change was the despair, anger, and unhappiness that I felt. I don't know if I had any expectations when I came into recovery, but I can say that I have not been disappointed. Have there been people in your life that have expressed concern over your behavior, your health, or your family? Do you agree with these concerns? I have come to realize individuals who are sick do not know that they are sick. It takes an outside point of view to see the whole picture. I am only one character in my story. I don't know what is going on in the head of someone else in my life. I don't know what my coworkers are thinking. I don't know what opinions my children may have. I don't know how my friends and family see me. But if someone expressed some sort of concern, I think I might feel a little bit hurt at first. Actually, I would probably be very irritated by that. I only know what I know until I know what I know. What does it mean to be unmanageable? Unmanageability is defined as difficult or impossible to manage, manipulate, control. So, how do I know when my life is unmanageable? Remember what a synonym is? The synonyms for unmanageable are troublesome, demanding, awkward, inconvenient, cumbersome, bulky, unwieldy, incommodious, uncontrollable, ungovernable, irresponsible, unruly, disorderly, rowdy, out of hand, wild, boisterous, difficult, disruptive, undisciplined, impossible, wayward, incorrigible, ill disciplined. The antonyms are manageable and controllable. In case I lost you, all those words related to the definition of unmanageability. I've already said that when things don't go the way I think they should go, I get angry. That is my lack of control over a situation or another person. If manipulation techniques do not work to bend someone else to my will, I can feel hurt, like I don't matter to them. But that's not always the case. My mom's three cats don't understand that I need to sleep, so I have to kick them out of my room at night. They respond by crying at the door and scratching at it. I'm done feeling guilty for needing some time alone. Their manipulation techniques don't work. Step 1 continues to dig. Are there ways in which you have sought approval and affirmation from other people? I used to be a people pleaser. Maybe I still am. I believed that others would like me if I did everything they wanted me to do. Honestly, I don't know if people like me or not. I don't have rocks and things being thrown at me as I walk around, so I'm assuming folks at least tolerate me. There are many unhealthy ways to seek approval and affirmation from other people. We may get involved in a relationship too soon. Perhaps someone just wanted to be noticed. The way people dress is another way to seek approval and affirmation from others. Maybe that $1 million car you bought is how you choose to seek approval. Some use their children as pawns. That mom that is pushing her child to be a pageant star is seeking approval and affirmation from peers. I don't think that she ever considers how the child feels. The child only wants to be loved. The dad who pushes his kid into sports so that he can relive his glory days is no different. When children don't do the things the parents want them to do, the parents take it personally. I'm going to repeat this. People are individuals with their own thoughts, feelings, and actions. Children are people too. Are you a yes man? A person that agrees to things just to spare the feelings of another person? Maybe you agree to things to avoid an argument with someone else. Do you say yes to things that you would rather say no to because you are afraid of the consequences? What happens to my ability to manage my own life when I do these things? I like to relate things to work and employment because that is something most of the population understands. I also bring up parents and children because that is also something just about anyone can relate to. So when I say yes to the things I would rather say no to, such as extra duties at work or coming in for overtime when it is not mandatory, or getting roped into being the dessert mom for your kid's soccer team, when I say yes to these things and I really don't want to do them, I hold resentment. The resentment is usually directed towards my employer, the soccer team, or my supervisor. I will come to this in another chapter, but I will touch on it at the moment. If I would have just said no to these requests, I wouldn't be resentful in the moment for following through with those tasks. This is when we lose control over our own lives. Feeling the need to please everyone around us, but forgetting that we ourselves are an individual with our own thoughts, feelings, personalities, and desires. It's not always bad to do something you don't want to do, but if it's a recurring thing, resentments start. Do you take care of others easily but find it difficult to care for yourself? This feeds into saying yes when I meant or wanted to say no. I enjoy feeling important, needed, smart, and validated. The only way I knew to get those needs met was to be the people pleaser. I didn't think I had a right to care for myself. In the meantime, I am uncomfortable, miserable, and irritated. In the end, I feel used and empty. When things finally do start to get better in life, how do you feel about that? Do you wait for the next shoe to drop? Are you always on edge, walking on eggshells wherever you go? If there is no drama or chaos going on for a while, do you tend to get bored? When there is a crisis going on, does it make you feel alive? Do you enjoy being at the center of the crisis? Do you play the role of the go to person for support, counseling, or giving validation to others? So, what happens when the crisis is resolved? What happens when you need help? Are those people going to be there for you in the same capacity you were there for them? Think about it. How well do you take care of yourself? Do you ignore your aches and pains? Do you go without things you need? It's expensive to be alive and to seek medical help. I get it. I'm talking about getting enough rest, eating a balanced diet, taking time away from TV, social media, and daily problems in general. I am a person that likes the quiet. I always have. There are times when I'll sit on a chair in the garage and zone out staring at the sky or neighborhood. My brain empties, or at least pauses for a short time. Sometimes I zone out for an hour or more. Call it meditation, call it zoning out, call it quieting your head. I don't care. I believe it's good for us. Taking care of yourself might also look like an organized house. It is less stressful when you know where things are and when you have a place to put your things. This might even carry over to your vehicle. Is it full of garbage? And if so, why? What is the reason to remain in filth, dysfunction, and chaos? How do you feel when you're all alone? Is it a relief or are you anxious because the thought of being alone is terrifying? I'm not talking about all alone forever, but maybe for a whole day or two. When you are alone, do you miss the chaos that surrounds you? Do you always carry that chaos like a comfort tool? Or do you take a deep breath and relax? Maybe do something you want to do. I've gone to fairs and festivals alone and had a great time. I'm not a social butterfly, never have been, but I do enjoy watching people interact with one another. Sometimes I put myself out there and talk to a stranger, sometimes I remain quiet. Can you tell the difference between pity and love? I took pity on people I was in relationships with, and I mistook that for love. Pity is defined as the feeling of sorrow and compassion caused by the suffering or misfortune of others. The synonyms are compassion, condolence, sorrow, regret, sadness, distress, sympathy, fellow feeling, understanding, feeling emotion, ruth, and rue. The antonyms are indifference and cruelty. A second definition of pity is a cause for regret or disappointment. Those synonyms are shame, bad luck, misfortune, crying shame, cause for regret or disappointment, source of regret, sad thing, unfortunate thing. I've defined love before, but here it is again. Love is an intense feeling of deep affection, to put it in simple terms. If I am in a relationship out of pity for another person, I'm going to become resentful of that person because my motives are not the same as love. I can't think of a great example of this without causing a ruckus. We live in a throwaway society, and that includes throwing away people when they no longer suit our needs. Love still feels like a choice. If you love a person and they become disabled, you won't grumble about having to care for that person. Pity is a way to make yourself feel superior to the other individual. People want to be loved, not pitied. Pity seems so dirty. An example are those commercials that talk about suffering children or suffering this, that, or the other thing. They are trying to profit off your pity. How many failed relationships have you had? I've been married twice and have had 3 long-term relationships that all ended the same way. I left. They were part of the problem, but the main issue was always me. I wasn't able to communicate what I wanted or needed, and they were not capable of reading my mind. I have 3 exes that are now dead because of their disease of addiction. I always seem to gravitate towards other broken people. My mistake is thinking that I'm going to somehow fix them in some way, shape, or form. In the end, they wouldn't comply, and I got tired of trying to manage them. Their disease was also bringing me down. I had to leave. Not everyone I dated had such issues. It all came down to my lack of self esteem and confidence. I didn't know what I wanted or needed at the time, and I expected them to make me feel better somehow. Can you trust your own feelings on something? I know I can't. I get angry and make stupid decisions or say things that I don't really mean. Feelings are not fact. Neither is the scenario in my head. I thought my family hated me for years. I thought I was an outsider. None of this was true. It was all something my brain conjured up to keep me feeling sorry for myself. Once I admitted that I was powerless, I saw things a little different. This is only the start. It is a lot to digest, and you may want to listen multiple times. I listen to my own podcast, I'll admit it. I listen because what my guests have to share is important. The things I talk about are important. At least it's all important to me. Join me again. More will be revealed with step 2. In closing, I would like to say that the opinions expressed here were strictly of my own making or by my future guests. Take what you like and leave the rest. You may come to realize that you may not like me or what I want to share. Let's talk to each other, reason things out, but let there be no gossip or criticism of one another. Let the fellowship of ethical human behavior and the serenity from positive human interaction help you grow and chill out, one experience at a time. I would like to thank my higher power for guiding me through this podcast. I hope to spread the message of love, hope, and understanding by touching one life at a time.
Okay, okay, okay. Back to here and stop screen. So, what did we learn from this episode? We learned about workplace woes and general complaints and how it relates to step 1. Um, this just sounded like a whole bunch of random thoughts thrown together, but what I was doing was answering questions out of the back of a book. So that's why it was all scattered, and it's just really is a bunch of random thoughts. So I know that I had a hard time listening to myself. I'm like, "Geez, would you just shut up already?" But it was one of my earlier episodes. I suppose I'm gonna have to go back and revisit and do a step 1 episode again and see if I can make it a little more fluent, a little more better. Anyway, yeah, there was some good nuggets of information in there. It wasn't a total crappy crap episode, but it was not one of my better ones. So anyway, join me again next time where I think it said we will be talking about relapse or what relapse looks like for me. I think that was an emotional one. I guess I'll find out in a few moments. Bye bye.